Good morning, folks. Fire Steve here, and I've been getting a lot of questions like this. Should people in Calgary, Edmonton, Red Deer, some of the major centers, should they be prepared as well? Now, I will reiterate this. It's always a good idea to be prepared. You don't know when natural disaster is going to strike and in what capacity. Not only wildfires, but flooding as well, especially in Alberta. Other parts of the world, it could be an earthquake, it could be a tornado. It's always a good idea to have something prepared regardless. But for the sake of this video right here, we're going to be more specific to the wildfire threat happening in Alberta right now. Biggest thing to keep in mind is keep an eye on the topography, what kind of terrain, what type of fuels are around your town or city. Now, if you see right here, we have some fine flashy fuels, some dry grass, whereas typically most wildfires start off because it is so easy to ignite and then it carries off into the trees. Now, in areas where you have a lot of grass, these fires are going to move quickly. They're not going to be as intense, not to say that they can't create damage, but if you're in a larger center surrounded by fields, surrounded by grass, the likelihood of it penetrating deep into a city is very slim. So in the case of Calgary, it is surrounded mostly by prairie, by flat land. There's not a lot of forest except for the southwest corner down here. Red Deer is another major center, mostly surrounded by flat land, by prairies, very low risk as well. Now, Edmonton's kind of unique. It is surrounded by a lot of farmland, a lot of flat lands around the city, but there are also some forested areas as well. Not as thick as places like Fort McMurray or Grand Prairie, but there is some trees to keep in mind. And also we have the River Valley. Now, I had people asking if they're in the middle of the city, if they're, around this area here. The likelihood of a fire penetrating from outside the city into the city, very slim. Now, I don't want to operate in absolutes because anything can happen, but the fire would have to extend through home and burn home after home after home to spread through a city, in which cases there'd be fire departments. The cities have excellent fire crews, full-time fire departments. They'll be on it to stop the spread. Now, I would like to also talk about the other types of fuel, the trees, the forest. This is the thing where things get really hot, really intense. Once it gets going, especially if we don't have a lot of moisture to slow it down, these fires can burn with intensity, and every little leaf comes off the tree, they throw off little firebrands, little embers that'll float, and they can move for kilometers ahead of the fire. And then that starts another fire, and then that just keeps feeding it as the wind pushes that fire forward. Now, if the trees around you are typically green leafy trees, I'm talking about birch, poplar, aspen, those ones typically slow the fire growth a little bit. Now, if it's super dry, it's all going to burn. The ones you want to watch out for are your evergreens, your spruce, your pine. These things would burn with super high intensity because of the sap content in it, and they can literally explode when they're dry enough. Now, I will do some more videos on fire behavior and explain the science behind it a little bit better when I have time. But I think the important thing right now is to have people prepared for these emergencies, whether they need to or don't need to evacuate. So always be prepared. But if you're in a major center surrounded mostly by flatland, by prairies, the risk is really low. Keep up to date on the alerts and stay safe out there, everyone.